Right, hello and welcome back to another video, fellow investors and traders. Apologies, it's a bit late. It's always a bit late, so I don't know why I apologise. Just always expect it to be a few days and up to a week into the next month when I get the video out. Just always seems to fall that way that I don't manage to find the time for a few days. Anyway, I think this is going to be a longer video than usual because there was a lot of buys and sells in the month, and I've also got some updated selling rules to run through with you that I've come up with in this month to try and kind of improve my results. So I will put timestamps in the description which should show up on the video as well. So if you're not interested in certain parts, just look down there and jump around where you want to. Okay, let's get straight into it because it's going to be a long video. Oh, we're on the wrong bit already. So it was not a good month for my portfolio. I mean, the markets have been difficult anyway, but I just found this month quite difficult. So we're down 2.16% for the month of August. The FTSE beat us by quite a lot. That was only down 0.25%. Trying to take some positives from it. I have certainly been improving during this month. When I get onto my buys and sells, you'll see that when I have been selling, my losses have been reducing. The prior month, I had lots which were over 10%. I'm getting that more under control now, and some of my new selling rules are helping with that. And I guess I'm taking it as a positive, whether it is or not. So over July and August, which have been two very difficult months, I'm only down kind of 2.3%. Obviously, I'd rather be up, but I don't think that's too bad considering I'm a relative beginner at trading and how difficult these 2 months have been. I think if I had these 2 months again, so if the same kind of environment happened next year, I would hope to get through it a lot better than I have done. But it's all a learning process. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm learning from it. As I say, I've got some rules to go through later. And you'll notice here as well, yes, you can see this. I'm now 41% in cash. So I've been adapting. I've been lowering my opening positions. So instead of 5% positions, I've been doing kind of 3% positions. Just while this difficult environment is around, I just minimizing my risk. And obviously, if it turns around and some of the trades I've put on end up doing really well, I'm making less of a profit. But it goes the other way as well. And I just felt a bit more comfortable with that. As I've last month had quite a few go wrong, I feel more comfortable just reducing my initial positions. For the year to date, we are down to 5.85% profit for the year. And now we are losing to the FTSE All-Share, which I don't like, obviously, which is up 8.15%. But I do think you can see earlier in the year we had this run. We had this extreme pullback, actually. It's funny, isn't it? I don't remember this now. But I'm sure at the time, going from 6+% back down to zero was very disheartening. But it's amazing how quickly you move on. This pullback here is actually it's maybe not even as severe a pullback, to be honest, coming back down. So I'm hoping for the last part of the year we have another up leg, and that will put me up to a reasonable result for the year. Even if we don't, I'm learning. So it is what it is. And then for the total lifetime of the portfolio, which I'll say again for new people is from the beginning of 2022, we are up 19% basically. We're only 3 basis points off there, versus the FTSE of 8.76. So not too bad. I would like that to be a lot better, obviously, over 2 years. 3 years, almost 2.5 years. I'd like that to be a lot better. But for this period where I am trying to figure out my investing style, I've gone from a value investor to a trader to a position trader I've tried swing trading. While I'm finding my preferred investing style, this whole period for me is just like an education. It's like doing a degree, but I'm doing it myself. I'm experimenting with different strategies. I'm reading books, kind of getting inspired by successful traders, watching webinars, that type of thing. So while I'm going through my education, if I can still make a profit doing it, then that's happy days. So that's that. And then I think, I've got the slide for my portfolio as it stands. I mean, this is 6 days old now. We're on the 6th of September, but this is how it stood at at the end of August. So less positions. I think this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 positions. So I have a max of 20, which kind of sorts itself out by the 5% positions sizes, which is my standard. But because I've been reducing, I technically could have more than 20. But 20 is my cutoff, so I won't have more than 20. So we're quite sized down at the moment, which is one of the reasons we've got plenty of cash to work with. And it's quite an equal split now of UK and American stocks. It used to be a lot more US stocks, but now, just through the process, now I've not made a conscious decision to pivot into the UK. Just more UK stocks have been setting up, and more US stocks have been forcing me to sell through stop losses. So it's just the process that I have just is naturally swinging more to the UK at the moment, which I'm perfectly happy to see. So let's get straight into the buys and sells. There's a lot to go through this month, so I'll try and be a little bit quicker than usual. And I think I'll go through the buys and sells, and then I'll go through my new sell rules. Actually, it's probably a convenient point when I get onto my sells. I'll jump into my sell rules then. Okay, so this whole list is all buys and sells. So I'll run through them fairly quickly. So Gulf Marine Services up first. This is a UK company. I was sat in a coffee shop one day reading through a research report on them, trying to familiarise myself with the company. So it was kind of fresh in my mind. And then a couple of days later, after that, I went and looked at the chart. And what I had in, it's not there now, but I had a trend line that went something like that. So if you imagine, we are here. So I'd just been looking at it. It was fresh in my mind. I had a trend line. I wasn't really intending to buy if it broke the trend line, because that's not my core strategy. My core strategy is to wait for it to go above this value up here, or at least a horizontal line from here. But I saw it break through, and I think really it is recency bias. It was fresh in my mind. I thought, screw it, let's give it a go. It was only a small position. It was only 2.5% position. So I minimised my risk in that regard. I kind of wasn't going to enter with a full position. And it also doesn't pass my checklist. It's on my keep an eye on list, so it's over 30, but it doesn't score over 36. It went up. I thought it was a genius to start with, because it went all the way up. You can see here, and I was up. If we bought in the middle of that circle, I was up kind of 8% in a couple of hours. I thought, yes, genius. Next day, crashes completely back down. I had my stop very tight as well, because I didn't want to take much risk. And the next day it went down, and I sold. So we ended up taking, so this is kind of a 2-in-1 sell, 11.3% loss, which is actually over 10%. Because the stop loss looks quite tight, but it's actually, it's that second day. Really, I should have sold on that day, I guess. But I was giving it a chance to come back up, which it did try to do. I'm going to allow myself to have trades every now and again that aren't 100% following my core rules. This one, it was still trading it as if it was on a break, looking as if it might be going into an uptrend. It was above the 150, so I'm not going to beat myself up too much, but it wasn't the kind of the textbook setup. This one didn't work out. I think that's more kind of the market environment than anything else. I think if we'd been in a bull market and this formation had formed, it would have carried on up. Anyway, we've spent too much time on this one now. Next one, so that was a buy and sell in one. Let's wait for this to load. There we go. Next one is a buy and sell in one as well. So I'd been watching this for a little while. I had this trend line in at the top. It tried here, it got close here. I had my resistance line right at the top. You could probably have put it down here as well. On this day, it broke through. It had the volume as well. You can see down the bottom here, the volume spike above the white line is the average of I've got it set to the previous 50 days. The average of the previous 50 days volume. So it broke through that. I bought as it broke through. And then very simply, it fell back down. It hit my stop and I was out. And that one, that was a 7.5% loss. Next one. I promise we will have some that haven't failed yet. Right, so Celebras Technologies. So you can see a lot of UK stocks in August with my strategy were setting up. So that's why there have been so many buys and also some sales because some of them failed. But there's a lot of UK stocks added to the portfolio. If I zoom out of this, so we're on the daily chart, by the way. So it was in a continuous downtrend. It broke up. I wasn't following the stock here, but you could have said that this line here was the resistance and you entered here. But as I say, I wasn't following the stock then, so I missed that. It broke through, went sideways for a while, and then I was using this as the previous resistance level. You could also have used this line here, but I used this area here. It broke up through there with lots of volume. No, without volume, sorry, which is why I didn't enter. But it was a strong move, and I said to myself, I'll wait for the pullback and buy on the pullback. It pulled back, I didn't wait all the way. I thought that might be the pullback, so I entered there, but I had my stop very tight. So I had my stop literally under the breakout level. So I wasn't risking too much. Since then, it's just kind of meandered along. I think it's showing more strength than weakness. Obviously the 50-day moving average is in a strong uptrend now. I would expect it to come down and touch the 50 and then carry on moving up. But as long as it puts in a higher low here and then a higher high, then I would say that is definitely in an uptrend, and we will just wait and see. But this is another one. It was only a 3% position rather than a 5% position. I was just minimizing my risk this month, just making sure that we didn't make too many mistakes again. Next up, from some quite small cap stocks to a mega cap stock in UK terms, this is AstraZeneca. So I'll zoom out here, just give a bit more of an overview of the price action that it's been going through. So since its peak, it obviously went up a huge amount during COVID times, gave quite a bit back, and then started running up again. It only recently got anywhere near passing my checklist. It's still not. So on the side here, if it's yellow, it means it's between 30 and 35 points on my checklist, so it's not technically a pass. But I haven't really got enough UK stocks that pass my checklist to choose from. So I've extended it for UK stocks that I can, if it's setting up well, buy ones that are 30 plus. And it'll be interesting to see if they deliver as good results as the ones that pass. Green is a pass and red is it doesn't pass. It's below 30. So AstraZeneca, it's a classic breakout. It ran up. It was going sideways for quite a while. It had these two knocks on this resistance level. So I put my line in. I was just waiting for it to break through. It tried on this day, and then it tried again a few days later. It had some volume, and that's one of the things I've been noticing actually. Throughout this month, there's far less volume. And I think that's a known thing. It's August, people go on holidays and things. A lot of traders just take a couple of weeks off. There just isn't as much volume in the market, and that's something that I've been noticing. So I haven't been as stringent on my volume through the month of August. I normally want to see 1.5x volume. This one, on the day I bought, was just over 2 million versus the average of 1.7 million. So it was over the average, but it wasn't as much as I would usually want. But maybe I should have been sticking to that, because it has come back, tested the 50-day. At the moment, it's holding up. We are live now. It's 10 to 4 UK time. So today it's holding up. It's bouncing off the 50-day, and maybe this will carry on up after that. But we've got my stop set down here. A reasonably tight, well, actually a very tight one for me. So that's a 5% stop loss. And the reason for that is AstraZeneca doesn't move that quickly. So even though yesterday it did actually do a 4% move, but generally it doesn't move that quickly. So I felt I could have a tighter stop than usual, without the risk of getting kind of stopped out too quickly. And it was under the 50-day moving average, which seemed like a sensible position to have it. So far that one is going fine. Next up, Sorry, we've got a lot to run through. As I say, if you want to skip to sell rules or anything, I will put timestamps. So Journeo, another UK stock. Let me zoom out on here. So this has been was in an uptrend here, went sideways for a good year or so, went into another massive uptrend, and then started. You could say that this is sideways or even a slight downtrend, probably more sideways. And I put in to me, it was making quite a clear trend line on the downside. So I put in this trend line, and I also put in the horizontal at the top. So my plan was to wait for the break of the trend line. If when it broke through the trend line, it had volume, I was going to enter then. If it didn't have volume then and looked quite weak, I was going to wait for it to break through the upper horizontal level. It did have some decent volume on the day that it broke through here for August. It's still not quite 1.5x, but it was above the average and looked quite a strong move. So I entered on that day. It since ran up. This position here is my new selling rules. So I sold a third of my position once it was up 10%, and I moved my stop to break even. So even if this comes back down now and I get stopped out at break even, I would still have made a very small profit. So I'll get onto the sell rules in more detail later. Next up, FRP Advisory, another UK stock, lots of UK stocks this month. So this one, 2 touch points on this resistance. If I close this up a bit, you can see it's been in kind of a sideways, quite a wide sideways channel for quite a long time. And I was just waiting for it to break through this upper trend line, same as most of my setups. It broke through here. It didn't actually have huge volume then. We set our stop loss down here, which I imagine is a 10% stop loss. It's even tighter than that, 7.5%. And we are just waiting to see what happens with that one. The moving averages are going into quite a strong uptrend. I haven't got it on at the moment because it clutters the charts somewhat. But the relative strength rating is high on this one as well. It's an 85, which I like to see. Anything above an 80 is ideally what I want. Above 90 is great. But 85 is decent. I'll turn that off because it does get in the way a bit. Oh, sorry, on FRP as well. So it was only... It's a 3% position. But if it is successful and it does trade up, I'm counting this as coming out of a phase 1 base, then I will probably add to my position if it breaks through this trend line, which would be into... Is that a new all-time high? I think it's a new all-time high. I'm not going to zoom all the way out. But I will add to my position there to bring it up to a 5% position. Next up, another UK stock, Auto Trader. So this one was very much a phase 1 continuation trade. No, phase 2 continuation trade, sorry. It was in a base down here. It broke out. You can see this day here, huge candle upwards. Ever since then, it had a pullback to just below the 150, where I probably would have been stopped out if I had entered here. But it's been moving up in kind of levels. It settled on a level here sideways for a while, and I was just watching it, waiting for it to break through. I've got 2 levels marked here. One was the majority of the price action, where it's got multiple touch points, and one was the high of this total area here. I was looking to enter here, but if you can see down here, there was pitiful volume on that day, so I didn't enter. And then when it broke through the highest point, there was plenty of volume. So I've entered here. Then the very next day, there was a big move, up 3%, but not very much volume. And since then, it's just kind of been ambling along. And we've got the stop loss down here below the 50-day at kind of what I would see as a fairly logical point of price support. Now we are on to US buys. So that was all the UK ones. This is, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Exelixis. Classic breakout. I was quite proud of my entry on this one. So it was in this defined trading channel. We had earnings. I did look at the earnings and they were quite good. So this is when they released it after hours. So it wasn't until the next day. I, from memory, literally bought like 5-10 minutes after the open, as soon as I kind of could really, and timed it well. And for the rest of the day, it was moving upwards. So we got in really well there. And on the day, we were kind of up 7 to 9%. Ever since then, it's been showing a bit of weakness. It's just been kind of giving back. I'm not sure why. I think maybe that's just the market at the moment. I would expect this. Maybe it comes all the way down to the 50. They come up to meet and then starts going higher. I can't see any reason why this should sell off and break down. It was really good earnings results. So I'm expecting this to kind of come down, shake out the weak holders and then kind of start moving higher again. But we'll see what happens here. You see I've got a note to add here because again this was only a 2.5% position. So especially with US stocks, I've been a bit shaken up. So I've definitely taken some risk off here. But you can see this is quite a strong, internet's really slow today, quite a strong support area going back years and years and years. So I have said to myself that I will add to my position here to bring it up to a full 5% position. Assuming we actually get up there. Next up, Mercado Libre. So I will say, because I've got so many buys and sells go through, I'm not throwing in any information on individual stocks on this one, like what they do and that type of thing. But I think pretty much all of these stocks I have put out earnings reports for. I'm putting research snapshots out fairly often, all on my Twitter, my X channel. So if you don't follow me on there, please do, because I put information out on all of the stocks that are on my watch list and ones that I follow when they have earnings and all kinds of information. So if you're looking for some information on these that I'm not providing, then yeah, please do go and check out my my X channel, X feed, and there'll be a link for that in the description below. If it's not in there, then it will be on my YouTube channel somewhere. There's a link. Anyway, yes, Mercado Libre. Quite a defined resistance level here. Classic, broke through here with decent volume a few days after some strong earnings, which were down here, and it gave some quite strong momentum for the next few days. Broke through this level with decent volume, more than 1.5x, almost 2x, so that was ideal. So I entered there, and the intention was, which I did, to enter when it broke through this next resistance level, which was the all-time high. So it was breaking through this upper line was breaking into new all-time highs. So I was waiting for that. It did so on this day. There wasn't much, in the end, there wasn't huge amounts of volume. I entered anyway, just as soon as it broke through that line. And yeah, by the end of the day, there wasn't actually enough volume. So it has, and that's probably a sign why it's just been kind of going sideways for a while. I bumped up my stop all the way up here, so very tight to my next entry, because what I didn't want to happen, so that's like a 4% stop from this entry. I didn't want to give back my profits from the original entry, which was a good entry. From here, we were up 9% when we made our second buy. So the idea is that if we fall back down to here, that's the stop for this entry. So I will sell that value, and I'll have my stop at break even down here more than likely. If there's a reason that I can see for it falling, like they release bad news or something, or the US market turns really poor, I may just sell the whole position here. But yeah, I've got quite a tight stop there, so I don't get in too much trouble. But the earnings were really good. I can't see any reason why this wouldn't continue up. And another US stock that I entered on is Palantir Technologies, which is heavily focused around AI technology, and it's got a lot of momentum behind it at the moment. There's a lot of people talking about it. So it was a stock that I kind of wanted to get into, really. You can see it's been on a huge uptrend. It had a sell-off, huge uptrend. And this looks kind of, I don't trade the cup and handle, but this does look like a big cup and handle forming, which does worry me because that could mean that we get the handle now. and then it breaks out. But if it does, I'll get stopped out and I'll re-enter. But yes, another classic setup. I was being... It's probably not enough sideways action here, but the place I took my point from was back here. So if you did treat this as a cup, I guess I'm hoping to not have the handle, so I guess it's just a bowl. And then hopefully we go up. But I was taking it from the original high point of the bowl and pulling that across. So we entered here, it ran up, it's pulled back down, hopefully just testing the breakout point, and we'll go higher. But again, I've got a very tight stop on this. From entry, it's a 6% stop. So I've really tried to tighten up on my selling rules, firstly where I put my stops initially, and on when I'm taking profits, which, as I say, I'll get into in more detail in a bit. Right, that's all the buys. So time will tell if I do feel like I've been over trading this month, but the setups have been coming. And the one thing I didn't want to do is to get discouraged by July and kind of just not do anything. And then the market turns and I've just missed all of these opportunities. So it was a deliberate mentality by me to just, not to force it, but just to keep trading. When the setups came, keep trading. And my action to kind of mitigate any mistakes was to lower my position sizes. So on to sells finally. So this is Transense Technologies, which is one that I bought last month in July. So this would have been in last month's video. I'm thinking I probably had my stop too tight on this one, but I think that's just one of the things that happens, isn't it? Looking back on it, so I had this is quite a tight 6.5% stop. So I put it just under the breakout. And I think at the time of entry, that was actually fine because the 50 moving average was all the way down here and that would have been too tight a stop. But I got stopped out here, and I'm pleased with myself for sticking to it and actually selling when I should have done and not holding on. So that's good. But it came down, it tested the 50-day effectively and then has run up and looks like it would have been a good trade. And my original rules of 10% stop losses, it would have been under there. So I would have still been in the trade and it's run up. But I think that's just what happens. Sometimes I'm going to get stopped out and it's going to run higher, but I'm minimizing that risk. So on the whole, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something frustrating when it turns around and goes higher. Another UK one, Acqui Technology, which I entered last month as well on the 22nd of July. So this one I was watching again for this whole period. Very tight sideways action. It broke out here. It had no volume if you look down here. On the next day, it had a lot more volume coming in, so I entered on the next day. And then ever since then, it just went sideways and has started collapsing. So again, I had a very tight stop. I was debating whether to have my stop below the entire range because I actually could have done that. That would have been within my 10%. It was only 8% to go below the entire range because it was such a tight trading range. But I decided to go for the tight stop, again, minimizing my risk. And I'm glad that I didn't go below because you can see here, there was a huge downward candle on one day, which was a 16% loss for the day. And if I'd had my stop here, it would have gone straight through that. And there's no telling where I would have actually got out. It could have been that I got out all the way down here and had a much larger loss. So even though this was a loss, I'm actually very pleased with myself, and I'm counting this as a win, weirdly enough, in terms of my trading strategy and the way I executed. And we got out of there with a 5% loss, and that's including fees and trading fees and everything. 5% loss with what could have been a much, much larger 20+% loss. So I'm happy with that. Now some profits. We have got some sales that were profitable. So this is Supreme. So they are, again, this would have been in my video for June. Entered on this breakout. Really good trade. I actually got in it broke out. I went onto AJ Bell and got a price which was below the breakout level. I just pulled the trigger. and luckily it did carry on going higher. So I got a really, really good entry price on the breakout. I was running all the way up. The max profit I was at was 46%. I had this little trend line in here. It was nowhere near the 50, but I had this trend line in just to give myself an idea of when it was going to start losing momentum. It broke through the trend line. So I made 2 sales in the month of July. So I split it into 2 halves. But I decided to sell half my position here because it had broken through that trend line and I didn't want to give all of my profits back. It then came down, hit the 50 and started moving back up. So I moved my stop loss to here. And then on this day, this is when they announced that the new government I don't know if it's actually, I don't think it's official yet, but they're talking about not allowing people to smoke outside in public spaces. So not even allowed to smoke in pub gardens or restaurant gardens or anything like that. And I assume that's going to affect vaping as well. I'm not sure. I haven't really read up on it. But that was the fall on this day. It hit my stop anyway. So I was just like, right, we're selling the whole position. We will get out. And I've got no real desire to re-enter this, even if it does set up, just because of all the uncertainty with regulations on what might happen with that. But we got out of that with just over a 28% profit total. So I'm very happy with that. That was a really good trade. Stuck to my rules, executed well. Yeah, good. I'm happy with that. Next up, Microsoft. So we originally entered Microsoft all the way back here in January 2022 when we weren't entering trades very well. So it was back in my value investing days, and I just bought, and it was in a downtrend, and it was a terrible idea. I bought down here, which luckily was the bottom, but I had no way of knowing that. That was just complete fluke. I bought at the bottom, but it was still in a downtrend at the time. Here is where I should have entered, and this is from my back testing. So I put in what would have happened if I'd bought at certain points. So that's not actually where I entered. Ran up, and then I entered here, which was when I had started this kind of new strategy of entry, like trading entries. When it broke out this level, let me put it in. It broke through this level to start a new up leg, so I added to my position here. Anyway, as we were going up, this was a long-term position hold. Obviously, I've held it for multiple years, so I had been raising my stop up the 150-day moving average at points where the price action came down and then started moving up again. So, for example, it would have been here, and then here when it came down, I would take this down to meet the 150, and then the price action came up, pulled back again. At this point here, I would take it down to where it met the 150, which would be there, and that was the last stop. And basically, I just got stopped out. Price action came all the way down, and I got stopped out here. So that's fine. It's not actually a huge gain, considering I bought the bottom, because this buy here and this one at a much higher point, I've kind of diluted that somewhat, and the dollar has been weakening against the pound recently, so that's taken a few percentage points off as well. But in total, it was a 24% gain, so better than a kick in the teeth. Right then, next up we have Keystone Law. So this, in terms of the public portfolio, has only actually been an entry here at this point. Because back here, I bought because I was familiar with the company. We didn't actually pass my checklist. So in terms of the public portfolio, which is based around the checklist system and everything, this didn't really work. So these buys here are not counted in the public portfolio, even though I have made them. But it will give some kind of clarity on why I've decided to sell a portion. But effectively, my new sell rules, which I'll get onto, dictate that I sell a portion of a position if it breaks through the 150. So obviously I only came up with these sell rules this week. So at this point I didn't have these rules in place. But here I did. So I've sold, is it a half or? I've sold a third of my position here. Because obviously we've got some quite good gains. This green line is my average entry price. So we're selling at 30% gains. And for the public portfolio, from here, it's only a small position, but we're up 19%. I will sell another third if it breaks the 150, so that's quite close, and then I will sell my final third when it breaks the trailing stop. But again, I will come on to those sell rules in more detail at the end of this section. Regeneron, so a US healthcare company. It used to pass the checklist, but through its recent earnings and things, it has fallen off the checklist. So I was holding it, but I really was looking for a reason to sell it. It started this fairly nice uptrend. I put this trend line in, and I decided to have a stop loss just following the trend line. So if it broke through the trend line, I would get out of the position with some profit, which it did on this day. It has since carried on moving higher, so ironically should have held it, but it was a stock that I was not wholly committed to. So I got out with a small profit, a small 8% profit, which again would have been higher if not for the weakening of the dollar and just the trading fees. That kind of foreign exchange fees from AJ Bell are quite high. But I'm okay with getting out of there. I didn't have huge conviction on the stock itself, so to get out with a profit is absolutely fine with me. Next up, ResMed is a similar story, even though it does pass the checklist. I had a price target on this one, so we bought back here in the downtrend before our new entry system. We bought here, and then we bought here on the breakout system. It's been whipsawing around a lot, and I have had this target price in for a long time. It's a long-term resistance level up here, and it's one that when at this stage here, when it dropped down, I considered selling, but I held on to my position, and it started running up again, and I didn't want to go back into a position of giving profits back. So I had a target sell price here, and as soon as it broke through that target sell price, it came through here with a huge up day. I sold at the top and locked in 16% profits. Since then, it's not really gone anywhere. This is a stock that I am quite keen on in terms of what they do, and it does pass the checklist. So this line is still in here, and if it kind of put in a strong upward move here, I might actually re-enter the stock. Next up, NAPCO Security Technologies. So this one, this was a bit of a roller coaster of a ride, and one that didn't end very well. So we entered back in May from this quite nice phase 2 continuation. It broke through here. We entered, started moving up. Perfect. Lovely trade. This whole first section, there was nothing really going wrong. And in hindsight, if I'd sold at the top there, that would have been a really successful kind of 19-20% trade. What actually happened is it pulled back on this day. This wasn't around earnings or anything, so I'm still not 100% sure what happened that day. I think that was just all the volatility in the US stocks at the time, start of August, end of July. That was just the general tech sell-off. It then bounced right back, so I had another opportunity to sell up here then. And then earnings came out. So I did an earnings snapshot. The earnings were good. They beat expectations. Their forward guidance was reasonable. They didn't kind of lower it or anything. So I thought they were good results. The market disagreed and it sold off 15% in that day. I had my stop all the way basically down at break even, just below the breakout point. And then the next couple of days, it looked like it was going to hold, but then broke down through and I sold. I was out. So what was a plus 20% profit turned into, annoyingly, even though it doesn't look like it, an 8% loss, just because, as I say, of the weakening of the dollar since I bought and the currency exchange kind of fees from my broker, AJ Bell. It somehow ended up being an 8% loss, even though on the chart it's like a 4% loss. So that's quite frustrating. So that's another reason. This is actually one of the main reasons why I have enacted my new sell rules. Luckily, though, we got up when we did because it had another huge fall down a couple of days ago, this week, yesterday, in fact. And the reason for that is because I've forgotten the name of them now. Something Panda? Fuzzy Panda? It sounds ridiculous, but I think that's the name of the company. They put out a short report, and they're effectively accusing some of the management at NAPCO Security Technologies of fudging the numbers, basically, of fraud. And they say they have insiders that have been telling them about it, and it all sounds like a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Now, obviously, I don't think this has been confirmed, so at the moment it's hearsay. I'm not sure how much evidence there is behind it. But I can't help but thinking maybe on this day, when it dropped so much on good numbers, there was some kind of insider knowledge there and people were getting out before the news came out. So it always pays. I think I'm certainly going to pay more attention in future if there's a big down day for apparently no reason. There normally is a reason, it's just you don't know it. So that's actually down from the peak, almost 39%, almost 40% in a matter of weeks. So we're out of that one. Annoyingly gave back a good gain. And then two more sales. Oh, we've already gone through one of them, actually. Just one more sale. So this is Intuitive Surgical. So they do robotics for surgery and things. US healthcare company. So this was just a partial sale. So you can see this has a lovely run up. I had my my target sell price here because this was already in a phase 2 uptrend. So I wasn't in this for the long term. I had my target here. It hasn't quite reached it. It put in a top here, kind of started coming down, put in a top here. And I just thought we're close enough to my target price with the volatility in the markets at the moment, and what happened with NAPCO Security Technologies and a couple of other my stocks. I was like, right, let's not get greedy. For the sake of a few percentage points, let's just take profit on half the position. So I sold half the position at a 20% gain, which would probably work out to be about 16% with all the fees and things. And so we're still running half of the position. So if this comes down and hits the 50 and carries on up, we can potentially lock in further profits. Our stop is down here, so we're just going to let that continue. And the final sell I got on my sheet, but we've already been through, is Journeo, where I took a third of my position at 10% at the top. So we've got through all the buys and sells. If you're still with me, congratulations. That was quite a mammoth one this month. Right, I'm going to stop the video and re-record just so that I don't risk losing everything, and I'll be back with my new sell rules. Right then, yes, as promised, here are my new selling rules. So I'll go through all this and show some examples on the chart. But the reason behind these new selling rules was to try and prevent trades that are profitable turning into losses as much as possible and lock in profits as we start going up. I do still want to let long-term winners run, so I've split this into two different sets of rules. One for shorter-term trades, for if the stock I'm entering a trade on is already in a phase 2 uptrend, and then there's a separate set of rules for a long-term trade coming out of a phase 1 base. So both of these situations, the stock should be passing my checklist. But the rules for the short-term trades, I'll run through it here and then I'll go onto a chart to show an example. But so I will sell a third of my position at a 10% gain, and I will move the stop loss to the buy price, to the entry level. I'll then sell a further third at a 20% gain and move my stop to the 10% gain level. And then I will sell the remainder, so that says remainder, which will be the final third, at the break of the 50-day moving average, or a defined trend line if there is a very defined trend line and that comes before the 50-day moving average. So if I go to NAPCO Security Technologies to explain how this would work, so let's say we had exactly the same entry here and we would have our stop loss. From looking at it, let's check the percentage though. So if that position down here below the 50-day is less than 10%, that's what I would use as my stop. It's not though, it's 14%. So what I would do is I'd move this up here below this level of price action here. And that should be within the 10%. Yeah, so that's an 8% stop. So that's where I'd have my stop to start with. Once the price got up 10%, so if I was quick, I could have caught it on this day. We will say, what does this do? Is that a mark? That's not very good. So I'll just put a line. That's where I would have made a sale. If I was quick. If I wasn't that quick and missed it on the day, I could have got in here. But that's the 10%, the first 1/3 of, well, that doesn't write very well, does it? 1/3 of my position would have been sold at 10%. Would have then carried on with the final remaining 2/3, and once it got up 20%, which it did actually right at the top here and here, but I would have been stopped out, but I would have sold another third here. So 2/3 of my position would have been sold, and I would only have been carrying the remaining third. And then the final sell rule is once it breaks the 50-day moving average, which is the light pink line on this chart. So once it broke through here, I would have been out on this day with the final third. So it would have been a 10% profit sale, a 20% profit sale, and I mean, it depends where I sold on this day, but anywhere from a 6 to a 10%, let's just say 8% profit on that day. So 8, 10, 20 would have averaged around 14-ish, 13, 14% for that trade. And I would have been out here and it would have eliminated this loss down here. What I like about these rules is I very quickly lock in 10%. And I should say once I sold here at 10%, I would have moved my stop loss up to here. So theoretically, unless it gaps down, I couldn't lose money on this trade anymore. And then once I'd locked in 20%, I would have moved the stop to 10%. So that would have actually got me out. They converged here, would have been out at the same price. But what I do like about this is if this had been a really strong move and it had carried on, and the price action had carried on like this and gone up, and the moving average had stayed like this, I could still be in the position all the way up here. I don't sell the final third until it breaks through the 50-day moving average. So it allows me to potentially still have a quite a large gain on a shorter term trade. Whereas my previous rule was a target price, which was usually around 20%, and I don't sell anything until it hits that price, and then I sell everything. So that could work out well and I get 20%, but it has the risks of going up 15, 16, 17%, which is a good gain, and then giving it all back and turning into a loss. And it also has the risk of selling at 20, but then it continues running up for another 50, 100%, and I'm not in the trade. So this gives me quick profits if it's just a quick upward move and then gives it back, but it keeps me in the trade for longer moves. So I'm quite happy with that new set of rules. Obviously, this is one example, but I've run through it with quite a few different trades, like backtesting, and I think it works quite well for my strategy and what I'm looking to do. So I'm happy with that one. And then the second set of rules is for longer term trades. So this is coming out of a phase 1 base. So it's been in a downtrend. Oh, the camera. It's been in a downtrend. It's been going sideways for a while, and then it's broken out. So it's starting a new uptrend. It hasn't been in one. It's starting a new uptrend. So once it's up 10%, I will move the stop to break even. So I won't sell anything. I'll just move the stop up to break even. So again, theoretically, I shouldn't be able to lose any money on the position. There will be some slippage from trading fees and that type of thing, but not too much. I will sell a third at the break of the 50-day moving average. I will sell another third at the break of the 150-day moving average, and I will sell the remainder at my 150-day moving average trailing stop, which is the sell system that the stop loss system that I've run through in the past. So let's use Meta as an example on this one. Obviously I'm cherry picking examples, but I have run through quite a few of these, and it does work. So original entry all the way back down here. So this was, it's been in a downtrend. It didn't really put in much of a phase 1 base. There wasn't much base at all, but realistically this was a phase 1 base, and then it turned straight into a phase 2 uptrend. So let's say we entered here and this was our phase one. We're treating it as a phase one base, a longer term trade. Let's get a stop loss. We would have put our stop loss down here somewhere. So obviously straight away, if it had failed and gone straight back down to the stop loss, we would have been out. Once it's up 10%, which isn't going to be very high, once the price got up to here, we move our stop loss to break even. So the first rule, once it breaks the 50-day moving average, we sell a third of the position. So it had a really strong up run. It broke here. So we would have sold a third of our position at this point here, which would have been locking in 56% gain. And then we allow the remaining 2/3 to carry on. We don't sell the next lot until it breaks the 150-day moving average, which is this darker purple line, this one here, the bottom line. So it comes close here, but doesn't touch it. We carry on, we're still holding. It doesn't break the 150-day moving average until all the way up here. And that's one of the reasons I like using the 150-day. You could use the 200 as well, but I prefer to use the 150-day. Is it allows those long runs over years. So this has been like a 2-year run with some big pullbacks, but you're still in the position. It allows you to get those really, really big gains. So we would sell another third of the position here once it breaks through. Let me punch in a bit. Once it comes down and breaks through the 150-day, that would be another third. So we've now only got a third of our original position left, but we've locked in massive gains. And then what I mean by the trailing stop is the one I've gone through a few times, but I'll go through it again, is when we move it up the 150 at points where the price actions come down. So the prices come down, it started moving back up again, and we would move the stop to where this price action on this day meets the 150. You could have counted this here as well, so it came down quickly and then came back up. You could have counted that day and moved it up. So this would be the stop loss that you use for that I will be using for the final third of my position. It's come down here. It hasn't actually come down and hit this stop there. So we sold a third here, but it didn't hit the final stop. It's moved back up. Because it's below the 150, we would move it to literally touch that candle, and that's our new stop. So what could happen here, obviously I haven't been following these rules, these are very new rules, so I sold a big portion of this position back here and I'm still holding half, but using the new rules, if this price then continued to break through and carried on upwards, we could theoretically keep raising this stop and carry on with the move. So it allows us to be in a move for a very long time. So if this came down and then shot back up again, we would move our stop loss to there, and we just keep moving up and up and up. I'm going to put the price back there. So that is my rules for a longer term trade. And so obviously this is textbook. This is Meta. It's done a really, really good move from the base to the top. So this sell point up here was 145% gain. So you got a 55% and 145% sales locked in, and then you're just playing with the remaining third. But let's say that it didn't go as well, and it went up here, you sold a third here, and then it kind of continued to crash. If it had just from this point gone down and gone back through your buy position, you would have sold a third at 55% here, you would have sold another third when it broke the 150 day, which would have been a 35% gain, and then your stop probably would have been around here somewhere, and you would have got a little bit of profit probably on your final stop, but you would have been locking in those gains even as the price starts to turn back. So those are my new sell rules. Those are the ones I'm going to be enacting, and that's one of the reasons there's more sells to run through in this month's video, just because there are going to be, instead of there being one sell per stock, there's going to be 3 sells per stock. So there's going to be more to run through. Anyway, this is a very long video. Again, I said at the end of the sales, but if you are still here now, thank you very much for listening to this Muppet for so long. And as usual, I always say it, but I really do love to hear How has your month gone? I'm sure most people have probably done better than me. I've not, as I say, not been a great month, but I hope everyone has done better than me. But it's been a really good learning month. I feel like as a trader over the past 2 months, trader/investor, I feel like I've got a lot better. I feel more knowledgeable and more confident now than I did 2 months ago in terms of my strategy and my execution. So it's all a learning process. I'm very confident for the remainder of the year. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope everyone has an excellent September. September started out a bit choppy as well, hasn't it? But away from investing, just generally life in general, I hope everyone has a fantastic September and enjoys the rest of the summer. Just a public service announcement as well. Very luckily, my wife and I are off to the US in a couple of weeks for a 3-week road trip around some of the national parks, which we are very, very excited for. But that does mean I'm going to be away until over where I'd be doing these videos. So the next month's video, I probably will put it out, but it will be kind of halfway through October. So just bear in mind that's where that's going to be. Anyway, enough of this. I'll let you all go and get on with your day. And yeah, hope you have a good month. Thank you for watching. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next month.